David Lerche, analyst from Avior. Gentlemen, we're talking telecommunications now, and let's preview Telkom. The stock is now under 40 Rand at 39 Rand 60, down 1 2/3% on the day. We've got results coming out from this company on Tuesday, and the market is certainly saying this one's going to go further.
Very possibly, very possibly. I mean, the results on Monday are probably going to see HEPS.
Oh, is it Monday? Sorry.
HEPS will be down from core continuing operations, probably around 40 to 50%. Your basic EPS are going to be down about 130%, so it's going to they will report a loss for the half. A lot of that does relate to write-offs in Nigeria, as well as various effects from the Vodacom transaction in terms of taxes and things like that. But generally, it's looking quite poor at Telkom.
Is this a no-go area for you?
I wouldn't say it's a no-go area. The price is cheap. We're sitting on about 8 times forward earnings at the moment, and that is looking quite cheap. But the general pressures in the industry are going against Telkom. We're seeing declining revenues at the same time that we're seeing increasing costs.
Derek, from your perspective, would you be looking at Telkom?
No, that's a no-go area for me. I don't go and look at something like Telkom when you've got something like MTN, the growth strategy that they've got going into Africa. If you want telecoms exposure, I would rather look at something like MTN personally.
Well, let's look at MTN at the moment, 119 Rand 77 flat on the day. Your target price on MTN?
We think it's worth somewhere around about 130 Rand at the moment. So there is a little bit of upside right now. Going forward, we certainly have it as our pick in the telecom space, and on a PE relative basis, it's trading roughly equal to Vodacom at the moment, which I don't think is justified given the growth prospects.
Are you focusing on the growth prospects outside of South Africa, given that MTN has only 20% exposure to the South African space?
That's exactly right, yes. Your growth in the future is not going to come from South Africa. Our market is saturated here. And it's really all about what happens in Nigeria and West Africa, as well as a little bit in the Middle East.
So this is your preferred telecommunications stock. Would you be holding it for the long term in a portfolio?
Definitely. I really like the stock. I think it's part and parcel of a portfolio. There is a bit of a higher risk sort of association with the stock, given, as you mentioned, the exposure in Africa. But I think for foreigners as well, looking to get some African exposure, MTN sits on the front page for them. So I think it looks very attractive from a foreign perspective. And you mentioned the growth strategy looking forward, and it's a good place to be. Good blue chip in one of my portfolios.
Why is the market getting excited about Vodacom at 57 Rand 30, down 1 1/5%? Its recent results were terrible.
Its recent results were quite poor.
You skipped the word terrible, quite poor.
I think the market knew 6 months ago that the gateway situation would be a disaster.
Writing down 3.2 billion Rand when you paid 5.6 billion Rand for the acquisition, more than a disaster.
More than a disaster, yes. A fair amount of that is due to currency moves as well, so it does get exacerbated in those numbers. But yes, looking quite poor. The truth is with Vodacom that the story is all about South Africa, where we're just not seeing any further growth. Interconnect's coming down. We're not seeing subscriber growth now that we've got the RICA legislation. As prices come down, obviously the usage will go up, and that also places pressure on the existing infrastructure, which means they're going to have to spend more money on CapEx without generating any additional revenue from that.
So how do you feel about the 57 Rand 30? Take your profits and run?
That would be my recommendation, yes. I think it's fully priced at the moment. I don't see value more than about 53 or 54 Rand at the moment.
Have you ever had any exposure on the Vodacom front?
Not me, no. It's only been trading there for a little bit though. So obviously through the unbundling out of Telkom, why go play there when you can go play and look at MTN? I mean, that's a far more attractive proposition for me. And as you mentioned earlier, I mean, the market in South Africa is extremely saturated. So they've got to think of some sort of a growth strategy going forward and where they're going to take the business. So I think MTN's far better positioned from my point of view.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. That was David Lerche and Derek Jansen van Rensburg. Appreciate your time this afternoon.